And a very good morning to you. It's coming up to 2 minutes past 6 o'clock. It's Friday the 9th of June. Early breakfast with me, James Max, still on the way. We turn our attention to the papers. I'll be joined by Eric Wiltsher. We'll be going through the big stories of the day, the front pages, but also finding out about who's dating who in Hollywood. There is horror in the playground. We will be reflecting on that big story this morning. But also Ukraine's counter-offensive, whether the US and UK ties are in good shape, a tax code warning, and also an ex-Britain's Got Talent contestant who has sadly passed away. So all of those stories, plus we continue with our conversation about Rishi Sunak and Joe Biden. They've signed the Atlantic Declaration. It apparently rewrites the special relationship between the US and the United Kingdom. But what should be in that Atlantic Declaration? And do you really think that there is a special relationship between our two nations? So the telephone number is 0344 499 1000. I am a genius, as is this drink. Elton Mooner, you have excelled yourself this week. Thank you very much indeed for that. I guess you should probably stay there whilst we say a very good morning to Eric Wiltsher. He is based in Slovakia, of all places, but he joins us for our newspaper review. He's a broadcaster on Radio Tatras International. Eric, good morning.
Good morning, James. Lovely idea in the morning.
What, to have cocktails?
Yes, that's
JK,
awesome.
Jeremy Carr's going to come in and he's going to think I've got some kind of weird problem.
Yeah, what you should do one time is get yourself a bottle of Hokaj, a very sweet Slovak wine.
A Tokaj, well, we're done Tokaj, very nice.
It is lovely, but it's a bit strong for the morning.
Well, hang on. This has got a double measure of gin in it.
That's a double measure of English gin. Tokaj will run rings round it.
I have no words.
But just so you know, you could make a non-alcoholic version of this for people who don't want gin.
Why? Why?
I have to say these things, James. I'm a responsible person in the hospitality sector.
I'm clearly irresponsible, and whilst I say drink responsibility. So let's get to the front page, because I think the wheels have just fallen off. Listen, my whole application process for that vacant spot on the sofa is not going terribly well, is it?
Not brilliantly.
It's bringing the blue into Blue Peter, isn't it? Right. OK, let's talk about the newspapers, the front pages at the Times. Sunak and Biden hail Atlantic Declaration to protect the West. Look, I'm sort of fascinated. My listeners, Eric, and viewers, they seem to think that there isn't actually a special relationship with the US whatsoever. What do you make of this?
I think what I don't see in this story is the one thing everybody wanted, which was a trade deal.
But we were never going to get a trade deal, and the trade deal that we've got is a bit of stuff, and I think it comes down partly because we didn't want to have their chlorinated chicken.
Well, who would want chlorinated chicken in the first place?
Well, I don't know, but whenever I go to the US and I eat their stuff, it's delicious.
Yeah, but
they haven't died yet, have they? I mean, you know, American life expectancy is pretty good, so, you know.
Well, go on then, I'll buy that one. But the rest of it, no. But I do think people are somewhat annoyed that the special relationship, note the word special relationship, doesn't come with a full trade deal. I mean, I get the thing about batteries and e-cars and all the other bits that they're talking about, but where is the special relationship? Having said that, if you were to ask that question here, they would say England is basically another star on the US flag. Well,
we are the state that they never had, which I guess is a possibility. Meanwhile, on the front page of the Times, also two other stories. The first is this British girl. She was 3, stabbed in French Alps playground. This story is absolutely horrific. I know you've picked it out in the Daily Mirror as well. It's their front page. It's the Sun's front page. This is just an absolutely horrific story. You don't expect this thing to take place, and I suppose, look, this raises again the whole spectrum. What happens when people are rejected from an asylum system? They're not given the asylum that they're wishing to have. You can't legislate for these things. And it's even more astounding, astonishing and appalling when you realise that this individual has children the age of which he was stabbing. There are no words, almost.
No, there are none, apart from commiserations to everybody who's currently panicking about their children in hospital. The one danger, I think, here, James, is that the anti-asylum people will jump on this and say, that's it, we shouldn't have any of them here because look what happens. That's not necessarily the truth, guys. And the facts are, we don't know what drove this guy to this horrific incident. He could, I mean, let's face it, a bipolar person could have done that. They could have lost the plot completely.
They could have done. The suspect, a recently divorced father of one who had unsuccessfully claimed asylum in Sweden and France, reportedly shouted in the name of Jesus Christ during the attack before he was arrested by police. So there we go. Meanwhile, mortgage deals pulled in a rush to raise rates. This is the main story in the front page of the Times today. Turbulence in Britain's mortgage market escalated last night after HSBC became the latest big lender to withdraw all its loans with only hours' notice in a new blow to homeowners. It looks as if there is significant issues and trouble within our housing market.
There is, just for those that are panicking about it, do look around, because I am aware, not the government one, but the private ones, where people can rent to buy. In other words, what they do, and this is a fact in the UK, there are companies doing this, you can rent a property for 3 years. It's valued at the day you start renting. The money collected goes to your deposit.
I understand that, but the difficulties with those are two things. First of all, the interest rates which are applied to any potential deal. And the second thing is that if it's valued today and the market falls tomorrow, you just got stuffed with a deal that costs you too much. So all I would say is be very careful what you sign.
James.
Yeah,
look at 3 years.
Be very careful what you sign.
But you should be careful if you're signing any agreement on money, even a mortgage, because you need to know where you're going 5 and 10 years down the track.
You do, but then on the other hand, if mortgage deals are being pulled because the market is about to shift and we're about to see another interest rate rise, again, be cautious, because if interest rates go up further, you may be desperate to get onto the housing market, but you might be better just hold.
My first house, James, started at 7% in the 80s, and within a few months, we're up to 17 and 18%.
Yeah,
I know it well.
Indeed. Now, the Daily Express. A British girl, 3 knifed in park. Horror is their front page story. Of course, that story is on the front page of the Daily Mail, but also patients have no right to know if doctor is trans, a new guide for NHS bosses. I don't see why they should have a right to that, but there we go. I don't think it makes no difference. I mean, frankly, if they're qualified to be your doctor, they're qualified to be your doctor. Anyway, well done, the Daily Mail, for sabre rattling. The Guardian, Prime Minister signs pact with Biden as hope of deal vanishes, but also the smoky haze in New York because of the Canadian wildfires.
Can I just remind you of the smoky haze that happens regularly in Las Vegas? This is not, please don't start to get into the panic mode of the world's going to melt, because these circumstances happen in California year on year.
Yeah, but I think it's less about that, and it's more about just the air quality that is really bad.
Yes.
So it's pretty toxic, which is why apparently New York's been really quiet, because everybody's panicked about it, but Americans love a good panic. The newspaper, Britain and US rewrite the special relationship. It's their front page. The Sun, Brit girl, 3 knifed in park. Of course, they lead on that story. The Star. Wow. Okay. This is the Star headline. Do you want me to read this to you, Eric?
If you wish.
World's biggest fun sponges demand proves ET exists. You're talking out of Uranus, is their headline. University's favourite newspaper is ordered to provide... Is it Uranus?
Yes. I mean, let's face it, we have to do this for producer Dave. It's his favourite comic, and he loves the comic. and therefore we have to choose.
The university's favourite newspaper is ordered to provide definitive evidence of flying saucers and aliens or else. Is it, so it's, why are you doing that weird Uranus thing? Because when I was at school, we didn't call it Uranus. And
no, we didn't either.
No.
No, fresh out of that.
Stuff that. Right, Daily Mirror. Hero who fought to save the innocents. They talk about that playground situation on the front page there. Johnson may be spared by-election is partly on the front page of the Daily Telegraph, but also Kyiv begins counter-offensive as Western tanks hit the front line is their main story. The Financial Times, city regulator broadens probe into Audi firm after sexual assault claims. This is an individual who sometimes is called the octopus. I don't know. This is Audi Asset Management faces a widening investigation by the UK's top financial regulator and the loss of key banking relationships after 13 women made allegations of sexual assault and harassment against the founder. So I guess that is a story that will continue. The Independent, British toddler stabbed in French playground. Horror is their main headline, but also stabbed in their push chairs is the Metro. Right, Eric, we come to your stories in just a few moments' time. And my thanks once again to Elton Mooner. Thank you for joining us this morning, and indeed for the Stanley and Barnaby game, which I enjoyed that today because I got it right. And also the cocktail. Delicious.
Good to see you, James.
Max Pause.
Max Summer Pause. Yep.
There we go. Max Summer Pause. There we go. You heard it here first. Elton Mooner, thank you very much indeed. We come to Eric's stories next here on Talk. Just coming out to 20 minutes past 6 o'clock. It's me, James Max. I'm with you until 6:30 when Jeremy Kyle will be here for your Friday morning breakfast show. Now, talking through the papers with Eric Wiltsher. He's based in Slovakia. So, Eric, let's just pick up another one of your stories. So, we talked about it in terms of the headline. Ukraine's counter-offensive has begun. This is discussed in many of the papers. We, of course, have the human and... the tragedy created by the breaking of this dam by explosive devices, with Ukraine and indeed Russia blaming each other. It would appear as if the balance of blame is on the Russians, but one cannot, without definitive proof, I suppose, move forward on that. The human disaster and the human cost of life and property is extraordinary, but then this counter-offensive now begins. What's the latest from your perspective as to what's going on?
Well, on the dam itself, I'll go back to strategies, because I'm a bit of a historian in terms of war and such like. It would have been crazy for the Ukraine army to blow the dam, because as an offensive that they were trying to put through, they were flooding the area where they wanted to go.
So strategically, all the evidence points to the fact that it's Russia, and one of the reasons explained for that is because of this spring offensive or the summer offensive being put together, that was one of the routes in, and indeed, although the water supply for Crimea does come from this place, and Russia and their occupation will be impacted, the fact is that Ukraine is having to rethink its strategy on its counter-offensive. Is that right?
Correct, kind of. And the other thing I would add is that from Russia's perspective, it was kind of a mistake, because we're about to go into the hottest time of the year. The waters already reside. I can't even say it this morning; it's too early. Going lower, and they can't use it again to stop any form of offensive from the Ukraine. So it's a bit of a crazy situation, really. Having said that, the people on the ground, and I was with a load of them on Wednesday this week, Ukraine people, and they are very upbeat at the moment. They are very passionate, they are very upbeat, and they really believe that this is going to work for them.
They do indeed. Well,
yeah.
Well, let's turn our attention back to some stories. However, just hang on there, Eric, because I'm just going to go to a couple of calls. Meanwhile, back to Eric. Let's find out another story. According to the papers, there's a tax code warning, and it's a common mistake. It could leave pensioners overpaying. How?
Well, if you don't reassess, they give you a special code when you retire. The trouble is, and there's an example of this last week where a pensioner was overcharged £1,000 a month when he retired because he didn't have the new tax code. Now, I can't understand why we have to tell the tax man to recode us when we get to 65. They have all the data. I think this is just another one of the continuation of blunders by HMRC, and it never gets better, James. It's continuous. It's been going on for years. I don't know why they can't just sort it out, but I do urge...
One word, Eric. Incompetence.
That'll do for me.
There we go.
That'll do for me.
Let's move on to another story. So, milkshake singer Kelly's.
Kelly's, yeah.
Yeah. So all her milkshakes bring the, boys to the yard or whatever it was. Anyway, apparently she's dating a Hollywood celebrity. Who's she dating?
Well, this is the guy that we probably know him better from Ghostbusters, I think, James. Because it's Bill Murray.
Bill Murray. We know him from lots of things. All the Wes Anderson films, as you say, Ghostbusters, you name it, Bill Murray's been in it. Why is there... so, seemingly, there was a whole load of outrage last week about Philip Schofield. He had a little sort of, dating affair with somebody who was, similarly distanced in age. Meanwhile, Bill Murray, dates Khalees. He's 72, she's 43. Nobody seems to bat an eyelid.
And I don't see why they should. And I don't see why they should have done with Phil Schofield either. The fact of the matter, and, who am I to talk? My wife's 43. Next week, I'll be 69. It's my birthday next week.
Look at you being Bill Murray.
Yeah, I wish. I wish. And I think it's up to people. If somebody, James... We all know people who are in their 30s and 40s who look and act like a 90-year-old. We all know them.
I know.
But there's one working with you this morning.
Yes, so I was going to say it. They're behind the glass right now. Listen, Eric, as far as I can see it, this is another story where perhaps we've got double standards working, and indeed we've got a situation in which, well, is there going to be outrage or whatever? No. Anyway, thank you very much indeed for joining us. If people want to find out more about what you do and where you do it, where do they go?
They go to www.rti.fm.
There we go. Eric Wiltsher, broadcaster based in Slovakia. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Going through the papers. Much appreciated.